Honda is having a quiet moment in 2026, and the best-selling model tells you more about riders than any advertisement ever could. This is not about chasing the biggest engine, the loudest exhaust, or the most expensive badge on the tank. It is about a motorcycle that makes sense when the payments, repairs, weight, and real riding conditions all start to matter. Riders are choosing value over ego, usability over image, and reliability over showroom theater. And that shift should make every legacy brand pay attention. Because when one Honda starts outselling expectations, it is not just a sales story, it is a warning sign. Watch until the end. Because the final Honda on this list proves the old motorcycle market is not coming back the same way. Number 7. Honda SCL 500. Some bikes do not win riders over with noise. They win because they feel honest the moment you look at them. The 500 has that plain-spoken scrambler attitude, the kind that looks ready for a back road, work commute, or run across town when weather turns ugly. It is not pretending to be a heavyweight touring rig. It is not trying to sell outlaw theater. It gives riders a usable motorcycle with enough stance, power, and old-school shape to feel familiar. That matters in a market where too many new machines seem built for monthly payments first and riders second. The 500 lands differently. It feels like the kind of motorcycle a practical man could park beside an older cruiser without feeling foolish. The high pipe, flat seat, upright bars, and 19-inch front wheel give it a rougher edge than most middleweight standards. There is a hint of the old desert sled idea, even if most owners will spend their time on pavement. The appeal is not only appearance. The engine family has earned trust because it has been used across several middleweight machines. That gives the 500 a quiet advantage. Riders who have owned enough bikes know reputation matters after the shine fades. A motorcycle that becomes a parts headache is not beautiful for long. This one carries a different message. It says a rider can have style without signing up for expensive drama. It also fits the current moment. A lot of older riders still want something lighter for short rides, coffee runs, gravel lanes, and days when the big bike feels like too much trouble. That is where the 500 makes sense. It does not replace a Road King in spirit, and it should not try. It fills the space between a small beginner bike and an oversized machine that only feels good once moving. There is pride in restraint. Not every ride has to prove something at a stoplight. Sometimes, the smarter motorcycle is the one that starts easily, handles cleanly, and does not turn a Saturday errand into a wrestling match. The 500 has enough character to look good in the garage, and enough common sense to leave the garage often. That combination is why riders keep paying attention. Its weakness is clear. Taller riders may want room, and long highway days will expose simple wind protection. This is a backroad, town, and light adventure machine first. Treat it like a smaller, tougher standard, and it rewards you. Treat it like a touring bike, and it reminds you where the line is. Power is 46 horsepower. Engine size is 471 cubic centimeters. Torque is 32 pound-feet. Braking uses a single front disc and rear disc with anti-lock braking system. Suspension uses a front fork with 5.9 inches of travel and dual rear shocks with 5.7 inches of travel. Wet weight is 425 pounds, seat height is 31.1 inches, and starting price is $6,999. The road gets rougher because the following machine was built for riders who see pavement as only the beginning. Number 6. Honda CRF 300L Rally. A man who has ridden long enough knows pavement is only one version of freedom. The Rally earns attention because it does not ask the rider to buy a giant adventure machine just to leave the county road behind. It looks serious, but its real strength is not image. Its strength is permission. It lets an older rider take the long way home, explore a fire road, or chase a quiet ridge without hauling around unnecessary bulk. That is why it matters in 2026. The adventure market has gotten heavy, expensive, and sometimes too polished for its own good. Many machines look ready for another continent, then feel miserable when they fall over in a muddy rut. The Rally takes a different route. It stays light enough to manage, simple enough to trust, and capable enough to make rough roads feel less like a gamble. There is nothing soft about that kind of practicality. Riders who grew up fixing their own machines understand the value of less weight and fewer complications. The Rally does not need massive horsepower to make its case. It needs to start, steer, climb, and keep moving when the surface gets ugly. That is the kind of performance that does not always show up in dealership talk. The tall seat is the first truth check. Short riders will feel it before leaving the parking lot. This is not a low cruiser, and it will not pretend otherwise. Once rolling, though, the height gives the rider a commanding view. The fairing and windscreen take enough pressure off the chest to make longer backroad miles more comfortable. For older riders who still feel the pull of distance, that matters. Not every trip needs motel reservations and hard luggage. Sometimes the best ride is a tank of fuel, a backroad map, and enough confidence to turn down the road everyone else passes. The Rally carries that old independent feeling without demanding a luxury budget. There is a pride angle here. Choosing the lighter machine is not surrender, it is experience talking. A rider who has wrestled heavy bikes in bad places knows the smartest motorcycle is often the one you can control when tired. Its weakness is highway authority. It can run open pavement, but it is happier when speed limits stay reasonable. Passing power needs planning. Heavy interstate traffic will expose the small engine fast. That does not make it weak. It makes it honest. Use it where it belongs. And it gives back more than the spec sheet suggests. Power is 27 horsepower. Engine size is 286 cubic centimeters. Torque is 20 pound-feet. Braking uses a front disc and rear disc with anti-lock braking system. Suspension uses an inverted front fork with 10.2 inches of travel and Pro-Link rear suspension with 10.2 inches of travel. Wet weight is 335 pounds, seat height is 35.2 inches, and starting price is $6,499. Farther down the road, a different kind of middleweight proves that comfort, speed, and control can meet without surrendering to heavyweight bulk. If these motorcycles are changing how you look at the market, hit like, subscribe, and tell us which Honda still makes the most sense for real-world riding. Riders everywhere are rethinking weight, price, comfort, and long-term ownership, and the conversation is getting harder to ignore. Number 5. Honda Transalp Electronic Clutch. A rider who has spent enough miles behind a windshield knows the middleweight class is where truth shows up. Too small, and the bike feels strained. Too large, and every parking lot reminds you what pride weighs. The Transalp sits in that hard middle ground, where comfort, control, and usable power have to prove themselves before the long trip. That is why it belongs here. The modern adventure market has been filling with machines that look capable, then punish riders with weight, height, and complicated ownership. The Transalp takes a more practical road. It gives enough highway strength to run with traffic, enough suspension to handle broken pavement, and enough comfort to make distance feel realistic without stepping into giant bike territory. The electronic clutch is the part that makes old-school riders pause. Some will see it and wonder why anyone needs help shifting. That reaction is fair. Riders who learned on heavy clutches and stubborn gearboxes earned their habits the hard way. Still, the clever part is that it does not erase control. It lets the rider use the clutch normally, or shift without pulling the lever when traffic, fatigue, or rough terrain makes life harder. That detail matters more than pride admits. Hands get tired, shoulders stiffen. Stop and go. Traffic can turn a good motorcycle into work. A system that reduces strain without taking away the rider's authority feels less like surrender and more like common sense. There is a difference between being softened by technology and being helped by it. The Transalp also has the right kind of speed. Not wild, not fragile, not nervous. It carries enough power for highway passes, enough torque for loaded climbs, and enough chassis balance to feel planted when the road quits being clean. That is what touring-minded riders notice. A bike does not need to be enormous to feel grown. Its styling has purpose rather than decoration. The fairing looks narrow, the stance feels tall, but not ridiculous. The seat height will still challenge shorter riders, yet the weight stays manageable for the class. There is a workmanlike feel here, and that gives it credibility. It looks built to be ridden, not parked beside a coffee shop for approval. The price puts it in a serious conversation. It is not a bargain toy. It is a real motorcycle for riders who want one machine to commute, tour, and explore. That makes the value less about cheapness and more about range. One well-chosen middleweight can serve better than two machines bought for ego. Power is 91 horsepower. Engine size is 755 cubic centimeters. Torque is 55 pound-feet. Braking uses dual front discs and a rear disc with anti-lock braking system. Suspension uses an adjustable inverted front fork with 7.9 inches of travel and ProLink rear suspension with 7.5 inches of travel. Wet weight is 468 pounds. Seat height is 33.7 inches. And starting price is $10,199. A larger Shadow waits beyond the middleweight line, carrying a name that still makes distance feel serious and the horizon feel wide. Number 4. Honda Africa Twin. Distance changes how a motorcycle is judged. A bike can look impressive outside a dealership, yet feel wrong after 300 miles, a crosswind, and a rough campground road. The Africa Twin earns its place because it still carries a serious adventure name with substance behind it. It is not pretending to be a cruiser. It is a long-range machine for riders who still believe the map should have unfinished corners. There is a reason experienced riders respect this kind of motorcycle, even if they never plan to cross a desert. The riding position is tall. The front wheel is ready for broken ground, and the chassis feels built for rough country rather than polished image. It brings the kind of confidence that matters when pavement ends and help is not close. The Africa Twin also proves that heritage is not only about chrome and exhaust note. Some heritage is earned through endurance, dust, and the stubborn belief that a motorcycle should keep going when the road turns against you. That is a different kind of legacy, but it is still legacy. Older riders understand that. A name means nothing unless the machine underneath can defend it. On the highway, it feels grown and steady. The power arrives with a broad shove, not a nervous rush. That makes it useful when passing traffic, climbing grades, or carrying luggage. The standard model keeps the 21-inch front wheel, which gives it off-road intent. It may not look like a traditional touring machine, yet it has the bones for distance. Weight is the honest warning. 510 pounds is manageable compared with full-dress touring machines, but it is still mass. Drop it on uneven ground, and pride disappears fast. That is where skill matters. This bike rewards riders who think ahead, choose lines carefully, and respect terrain instead of charging in blind. The price also asks for commitment. $15,199 is not casual money. A rider could buy cheaper transportation. That is not the point. The Africa Twin sells the idea that one motorcycle can tour, explore, commute, and handle rough detours without feeling like a fragile luxury piece. Its strongest quality is confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence, the kind that shows up when the weather changes and the road surface gets ugly. It reminds riders that freedom is not just about open highway. Sometimes, freedom means being able to leave that highway without wondering whether the bike belongs there. Power is 101 horsepower. Engine size is 1,084 cubic centimeters. Torque is 83 pound-feet. Braking uses dual front discs and a rear disc with cornering anti-lock braking system. Suspension uses a 45mm inverted Showa front fork with 9.1 inches of travel and ProLink rear suspension with 8.7 inches of travel. Wet weight is 510 pounds. Seat height is 34.3 inches in the standard position and 33.5 inches in the low position. And starting price is $15,199. Cruiser riders get their answer from a lower, meaner machine built around torque, confidence, and pavement. Number 3. Honda Rebel 1100. Torque feels different when it sits low and close to the ground. The 1100 earns its place because it gives cruiser riders a serious answer without forcing them into a giant, expensive heavyweight. It has the stance, the seat height, and the dark attitude riders expect. Yet it does not drag around unnecessary bulk just to look important. That makes it one of the most telling machines in the modern cruiser market. The old cruiser world was built on size. Big fenders, big tanks, big engines, and big payments became part of the image. The 1100 challenges that thinking. It says a rider can have strong pull, clean handling, and a low saddle without needing a machine that feels heavier than a small car. That matters for men who still want power, but no longer want punishment. A heavy touring cruiser feels proud on the open road, yet it can become work in town, in gravel lots, or when backing out of a tight space. The 1100 gives back control. That is experience making a smarter choice. Its engine character is the heart of the appeal. The pull comes early and hard enough to feel grown. It does not need to shake itself apart to prove character. It runs smooth, responds quickly, and has enough muscle to embarrass riders who judge cruisers only by size. This is where the bike becomes dangerous to old habits. The riding position also understands confidence. The low seat lets more riders plant their boots firmly. The bars fall naturally. The weight stays manageable enough for daily use. That combination gives the rider authority before the first mile. Confidence at a stoplight matters as much as horsepower on paper. Styling is where opinions split. Some traditional riders will want more chrome, more length, and more classic theater. That is fair. The 1100 is darker, leaner, and more modern. It does not chase yesterday perfectly. It tries to keep cruiser emotion alive in a market changing faster than many want to admit. The price strengthens its case. It costs far less than many heavyweight cruisers, yet it delivers real thrust and presence. That makes it difficult to dismiss. Riders are watching money closer now. A motorcycle that gives power without financial bruising feels more relevant every year. Its weakness is touring comfort. The stock setup is better for strong solo riding than long 2-up miles. Taller riders may want adjustments. Long hauls may need luggage, wind protection, and a better seat. Still, as a muscular everyday cruiser, it makes a clean argument. Power is 88 horsepower. Engine size is 1,084 cubic centimeters. Torque is 72 pound-feet. Braking uses a front disc and rear disc with anti-lock braking system. Suspension uses a front fork with 5.5 inches of travel. And dual rear shocks with 3.7 inches of travel. Wet weight is 497 pounds. Seat height is 27.5 inches. And starting price is $9,699. A harder lesson arrives when usefulness beats image, and a full-size machine costs less than riders spend on accessories. A lot of riders are quietly moving toward motorcycles that feel lighter, simpler, and easier to live with. Subscribe if you want more honest breakdowns on the bikes reshaping the market before the rest of the industry finally admits what is happening. Number 2. Honda XR 150L. Some motorcycles survive because they are beautiful. Others survive because they refuse to quit. The 150L belongs to the second group. It does not arrive with luxury paint, giant touchscreens, or touring prestige. It arrives with a simple promise. Turn the key, ride the thing hard, and it will probably ask for very little in return. That old-school usefulness is exactly why riders keep noticing it. The modern motorcycle market has become crowded with expensive machines trying to justify themselves through technology and image. The 150L pushes against that idea. It feels almost stubborn in its simplicity. Air cooling, basic suspension, and a carburetor sound. Old-fashioned now, yet many experienced riders hear those words and feel relief instead of disappointment. That reaction comes from experience. A motorcycle becomes more attractive when it is easy to understand. Men who have spent years fixing engines, adjusting chains. And riding through bad weather, no complicated ownership, is not always worth the trouble. The 150L keeps things straightforward. That honesty gives it a strange kind of dignity. The riding position also matters. It sits tall enough to handle rough roads, potholes, and gravel without feeling fragile. The seat is narrow and practical rather than luxurious. This is not a couch on wheels. It is a machine for county roads, trails, errands, hunting camps, and the kind of riding where utility matters more than status. Its engine is modest, and the bike never hides that truth. Nobody buys the 150L expecting highway domination. Riders buy it because it feels dependable, lightweight, and inexpensive to own. The appeal is not speed. The appeal is freedom without financial punishment. That idea becomes more important every year. A lot of riders are tired of giant monthly payments attached to motorcycles they barely use. The 150L feels like a reaction against all of that. It reminds riders that a motorcycle does not need to cost the same as a used pickup truck to deliver satisfaction. There is also something deeply familiar about it. The bike carries the same spirit older riders remember from small dual sports that lived hard lives in farm towns, mountain roads, and dusty back roads. Those machines were rarely glamorous, but they were always useful. Utility has its own kind of pride when a rider actually depends on the machine. Its weakness is highway comfort and speed. Strong winds, heavy traffic, and long interstate stretches expose the limits quickly. This bike belongs on slower roads where simplicity becomes an advantage instead of a compromise. Used honestly, it gives back more than its price suggests. Power is 12 horsepower. Engine size is 149 cubic centimeters. Torque is 9 pound-feet. Braking uses a front disc and rear drum brake system. Suspension uses a telescopic front fork with 7.1 inches of travel and Pro-Link rear suspension with 5.9 inches of travel. Wet weight is 282 pounds, seat height is 32.8 inches, and starting price is $3,399. One final motorcycle remains, carrying the strongest argument yet for riders who want comfort, confidence, and real-world value without losing cruiser identity. Number 1. Honda Rebel 500. The winning motorcycle is not always the loudest machine in the parking lot. Sometimes it is the one that makes the most sense after the pride settles. The payment is written down, and the rider asks whether he will actually use it. The 500 earns that kind of respect because it does not try to be everything. It gives cruiser shape, proven power, manageable weight, and enough confidence to bring more riders back onto two wheels. That is why it sits at the top. The market has been pushing heavier, more expensive motorcycles for years. And plenty of men have felt the cost in their backs, knees, wallets, and garages. The 500 feels like a correction. It is low enough to trust, strong enough for real roads, and simple enough to own without turning every service visit into a financial bruise. The low seat does serious work. A rider can plant both boots, balance the bike calmly, and handle slow turns without feeling like the machine is fighting him. That matters for new riders, returning riders, and older riders who still love the road but no longer want to wrestle a heavyweight every time they stop for fuel. The engine is the other reason it works. It is smooth, predictable, and stronger than its modest reputation suggests. It will not satisfy riders chasing giant torque numbers, yet it has enough pull for commuting, back roads, and steady highway use. More importantly, it delivers power in a way that builds trust instead of demanding constant correction. There is also a cultural reason this bike keeps selling. It looks like a cruiser without becoming a costume. The stance is low, the lines are dark, and the attitude is clean. It gives riders a familiar silhouette, while avoiding the bulk and price that have pushed many people away from bigger machines. That balance is harder to achieve than it looks. For a lot of riders, the 500 represents a second chance. Maybe the old touring bike became too heavy. Maybe the garage budget changed. Maybe the rider wants something his wife, son, or friend can learn on without fear. This machine keeps the door open. That matters more than any sales slogan. Its weakness is space. Taller riders may want different bars, a better seat, or more legroom. Long-distance comfort will need help, especially with wind protection. Two-up touring is not its best work. Still, judged as an honest, everyday cruiser, it solves more problems than it creates. That kind of usefulness is exactly why buyers keep returning to it. Power is 46 horsepower, engine size is 471 cubic centimeters. Torque is 32 pound-feet. Braking uses a front disc and rear disc with anti-lock braking system. Suspension uses a front fork with 5.5 inches of travel and dual rear shocks with 3.7 inches of travel. Wet weight is 408 pounds. Seat height is 27.2 inches. And starting price is $6,799. 2026 is showing us something the motorcycle industry cannot ignore. Riders are not just chasing noise, chrome, or old bragging rights anymore. They are looking for bikes that make sense after the payments, repairs, weight, and real miles start adding up. Honda's rise proves that common sense still has power. If you agree, hit the like button, subscribe for more honest motorcycle breakdowns, and tell me in the comments which Honda you would actually trust in your garage.